we joke about a little, midlife crisis, but actually what it is really is that, little voice that says, what about me? Is this it? Surely there must be more. All of those, thoughts we have in some ways are a little calling from inside that says, hello, it's worth checking in. Are there dreams you once put away?
Hi, Ashleigh. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It is wonderful to be chatting with you. Thank you for having me here as a guest.
Yeah, really looking forward to this. We're going to dive straight in, Ashleigh, with the first question, which is what's important to you?
It might seem like a strange one, but it is remembering I'm alive while being alive.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. What I mean is, it is so easy for me as a human, but I think for us as humans to get into, either our roles or our jobs or our tasks or our titles, and to be preoccupied and consumed and to see it as our lived experience as such. But the reality is, we're alive this morning. It's really good to notice that because, and this isn't morbid, although some people might find it morbid, because if we weren't alive, we'd be dead. And then we wouldn't be able to notice, gosh, look at that sky. Uh, Look at these people that I share coffee with in the morning. Look at the friends that I have. Look at the health that I have. Look at the energy that I have. Um, it's good to be alive. And I don't mean that to sound either woo-woo or navel-gazing, but perhaps it's because in my past life I worked as a nurse and I was with, many people as they left this world. And so that and other for other reasons, I have a huge appreciation for how friggin' great it is to be alive. Um, and that doesn't mean that it's always wonderful, but actually it's really useful to remember it because for me, I have this sort of a funny, not funny, image of myself on my deathbed that I'll be saying, for frig's sake, what did you go wasting your time for? Look at you, you were thinking about that and worrying about that and preoccupied with that. And there you are, and you were alive.
Yeah.
And and that's it in a nutshell. I mean, there's loads of other things that are important to me,
Sure.
but that's the biggie.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think it is actually, as soon as you said it, it's a really great reminder for anyone, for me, and anyone who's watching or listening, because it's the way you said it is that I'm alive, but it's the consciousness of knowing that you're alive. It's that, not sort of that flippancy of it. Don't just, take that beat to kind of go, no, you actually are here. And it's like the as I often think, when I'm walking or everything, that sort of the fine line between the beauty and brutality of life. As you say, not everything is amazing all the time, and we wouldn't want it to be either, I think, in some ways. So, but it is, when you do take that moment and that level of appreciation, really gives you that perspective, and for what we are, who we are, why we are, whatever those questions are, whether they're to be answered or not. But it really does. Whenever I do think of that, what you said there, you kind of go, okay, yeah. So is that so? With the next question from that, then, if you have that sort of level of appreciation of the fact that you're alive, surely the next thing is like what you do with it.
Well, that's the piece, you see, uh,
Yeah.
be, because I'll be cross with myself if I've wasted loads of it.
Mm.
When
Yeah.
there's a place where I so let me back up a little. I
Mm.
suppose I have spent time where my world, my attention, and I'm doing this because it felt like blinkers, were totally preoccupied with my responsibilities, my role. I took it all very seriously. I took the job that I had,
Mm,
the tasks that were mine to fulfill very seriously. And there's a place where when our health is threatened in some ways, and we're exposed to the fact that as humans we're vulnerable. Our health is
mm,
not guaranteed, and not um, yeah, not guaranteed, and therefore it's a precious thing.
mm,
And it helps. It certainly, this shift in perspective helped me then consider, how do I spend my days?
mm,
And of course, because I'm human and in this world, I sometimes spend some of my days, cleaning the bathrooms and putting out the rubbish and hoovering and doing boring, ordinary things. And I also want to make sure that I am doing the things that make my heart sing, that
mm,
will have purpose and passion and make this instant of a journey, and an
mm.
insignificant journey. I heard a beautiful phrase from a man in his 80s yesterday. I said, "How are you?" And he said, "Well, I'm so grateful to be alive still, and I'm enjoying even more how completely irrelevant I am."
Wow. Yeah.
And I think it captures that, we're ordinary. Look, I have a
Yeah.
very ordinary life, you know, and it's about being able to still appreciate uh, the connections I have, the people that I have, the moments of awe and beauty and connection
Mm,
that I have. That
yeah.
makes living lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. The way when you're talking there, it reminds me again. This other thought that I sometimes have is when we're talking about these sort of bigger questions, appreciation for life, is that sort of in some ways you could argue that anything and everything we do could be pointless, but that's the point of it. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, as you say, because it's such a short period of time in the expanse of what time is, and we're here for so, and those connections, as you say, that we can make. In some ways, you could argue, oh, what's the point in any of it? That's because that's the point. That maybe there is no point to it. It's that contradiction in that head of like, but you say for those moments where you have those connections or where you have those you can see the impact for what your purpose is trying to do on another person. That's what makes it so relevant in some ways, that what you're doing, because as you say, it's like the ordinary, in a sense of there's I think as well, there can be extraordinary in the ordinary as well. And I think sometimes the idea of the big grandioso goal can cloud us from, well, what can you do right now? What can you do today that will have an impact on someone that you might not ever know how big it was? You know what I mean? It's like sometimes we're expecting the fireworks type thing. Well,
Hmm.
maybe it's not as obvious as that. We could still be having a positive influence or impact on the people around us.
For me, the word I have used a lot and still use to describe certainly my own experience, probably up to my mid 30s, was the word striving. You know,
Mm,
we need to work hard at it and do a great job, and even around the personal development piece, have that impact, and it feels like somehow it takes effort or work, or
mm,
but even that and I'm deliberately using those
mm.
gestures because there's that, that yeah.
Yeah.
Because the reality is that uh, our efforts in some ways are irrelevant. All we can hope to do is notice the experience,
Mm,
and hope that in the noticing that experience, that in some ways we bring calm to ourselves, and hopefully to another spirit or soul in the world.
mm,
Because there's a lot of striving, there's a lot of,
mm,
you know, there's a lot of forward motion. We spend so much time, trying to get ahead or get on top of things. Oh, and actually, yet, when you ask any of us when we feel most at peace or most aligned with who we are, what we want, or our contentment, actually, that sort of slips away, and when we settle back into now, who we are now in this ordinary moment.
mm,
Um, and again, that's not because I'm able to float around having everything beautiful. It means then that when things are really tough, and because we're human, there's times that things are really tough. I call them when we're struggling inside the confines of our own skull.
mm.
It's just easier to remember that actually, yeah, we have very little control over it, and it will pass. And there's
Mm.
always hope in the human condition.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I was actually when I was because I always come up with my thoughts when I'm walking. I told you before we started recording, I have the dogs, so I have three labs, so I'm always walking them, and in the park near me, and that's where I kind of do a lot of thinking comes out. And I was yesterday I was doing a video where it was talking about that element, that contradiction between happiness and pleasure. And as you say that you said that word content. That sort of, to me, it's that sort of, as you say, whether you're doing quote unquote nothing, as you say, you're having the ordinary moments in life that you're still at peace with yourself, you're still calm, you're effectively still happy. Whereas that pleasure is always the seeking something, they're always the chasing of something. And it's not to say that's not necessarily a bad thing. Those things could be good, but if that's all you're going for, if that's the only emotion that you're trying to evoke, then that's all you're trying to ever get. You know what I mean? So it's can be a vicious cycle of forever searching. It's always looking for the next thing versus, as you say, the now. Are you okay with just being who you are in any moment?
And of course, because we're alive, we're a dynamic being. The
Mm,
human body is incredible. So it is in ongoing,
yeah.
perpetual change and movement. Our endocrine system, our neurochemistry, uh, our hydration level, everything. And it is, I mean, the human body is incredible, but it's always looking to try, and I'm doing this to find homeostasis, to find
Yeah.
balance. But of course, balance isn't a static thing.
Mm,
I often remember. Do you remember those seesaws in playgrounds when we were kids? And if ever you were there on your own, well, if you sat on one end of the seesaw, it just went down onto the ground. But when you're in the middle, there's that. And
mm,
then sometimes, for me, that's what life is about, really. It's about never getting there. There is
yep.
no there.
Yep.
It's about, no, okay, I need to adjust. The question that helps me is, who am I becoming today,
Mm,
this week, this year? Who am I growing into? And um, that's forward movement. It's always uh, yeah, dynamic, because it's forward
yeah.
movement. It's staying still. Sometimes, because we're human, it feels like we're moving backwards, and that's part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned there earlier that your previous role occupation was a nurse, and obviously you moved into a different part of your career. So tell me first then about the nursing, and then in the sense of where you got to now.
So I qualified as a nurse here in Ireland way back in the 80s. And for anyone old enough to remember Ireland in the 80s, it was pretty grim. I worked for a few years in nursing, and at that time, for lots of reasons that, of course, only made sense afterwards, I had a desire to do more, to be more, and to have more. I
Mm.
made a decision which my father thought was absolute nonsense. I left my permanent and pensionable job in the 80s, and they were like gold teeth.
Yeah.
Uh, and I moved into the pharmaceutical industry. So I worked
Interesting.
in there for 12 years, sales and marketing, from a sales rep right through to senior leadership with one of the big pharma companies here in Ireland, across a wide range of therapeutic areas: cardiology, endocrinology, women's health. And then I spent 6 years in the mental health arena, which is, yeah, always a fascination and has
Yeah.
been a fascination. And while and I learned so much there, and I also became quite frustrated there too. I could see and acknowledge the incredible skill of medicine and pharmaceuticals, and at the same time got frustrated with what I called silo approach to health.
Mm.
Everything, each system was viewed independently of the others almost. And so I became interested in what I call whole health, complementary medicine, homeopathy, Ayurvedic medicine, and really, I suppose, about what was necessary to for a body to thrive, not just not be sick.
Yeah.
Um, After 12 years in the pharma world, for a number of reasons, my own health being the primary driver, I left the pharmaceutical world and set up my own natural health clinic, and worked in that for several years, and began to notice that I've had a fascination with human behavior since I was a small child. Why people say they want one thing and then do something that's completely at odds. I noticed that as a very tiny little girl. And so I became interested in why sometimes some people were doing things around their health that were sabotaging themselves.
Yeah.
And so I became interested in human behavior. I studied in NLP, Virginia Satir, coaching, mentoring, hypnosis, mind coaching, really about just how we can find ways to grow in a way that's aligned with who we want to be in the world. And
Mm.
and so I combine all of the skills, from my nursing skills to the pharmaceutical industry, to my coaching, to my complementary medicine. All of those are combined in the work I do now, which is a combination of one-to-one work with clients and also delivery of health and wellness sessions, either to the corporate community or out in the community itself. And so I'm very lucky. I love my work, and
Mm.
yeah, it it fills me with a lot of joy. Yeah, that's the
Love
easiest
it.
way to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that, and it's really it's interesting in a sense, obviously, that you're. I'm always interested in people's career journeys and paths and stuff. I think it's always an interesting thing because more often than not, when I talk to people, we can. There's is there a sort of perception of what career is, of someone staying in where they are and stuff, but and thinking only people change careers is a more newer thing, which maybe slightly more in a sense that there's more changing at the current environment than would have been previously. But for yourself, you still navigated a different career. And it's, as you say, like going back to that first change in the 80s, I'm sure that you said your father time to leave a secure, very secure, safe job in a sense of within the, would have been the health service here in Ireland, to go to something that's, still in the health industry, but private effectively. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's big risk.
Mm.
So even in that, at that time, that would have been a bit of a risk. So there's a few more questions I'll add, but is that something that did you consider it a risk, or was it just like, you know what, I just need to change?
Looking back, I realized that um, one of the I'm going to call it a skill. One of the skills I have, and I remember distinctly the first time I noticed it, is decision making. I
Mm,
I I was 16 and I remember making a decision, and it was a small little thing. But I remember hearing myself on the inside, and being very clear that this was right for me. And and although of course it's only when I look back that I can see that
mm,
that repeated itself, but there's a that has been useful for me. I
mm,
have made pretty significant decisions, that have other people have told me, you're mad to do that, or I can't believe you're doing
mm,
that, or and um, the other piece about that is that once I make a decision like that in that way, I really don't need to consider it again. It's done. It's made. It's finished.
yeah,
It's not that it was the right decision, but that it was
no,
the right decision at that time.
yes.
And it has served me really, really well. Yeah, it's. I listen to that voice inside.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right to define it as a skill as well. In a sense of that, because that whole thing of one making a decision, and then it's also then the follow up. It's the action on the decision making as well. It's actually the whether it be handing in the notice or applying for the other job, at the time making a phone call, filling in the form, now it's sending the email, whatever it is. It's one is the decision, it's then taking the actions to live by that decision, isn't it? And it's as you say though, it's not. I think if someone again, I can't remember. I'm paraphrasing what I heard, but exactly what you said. It's like there's no right or wrong decisions. There's decisions you make at the time with the information you have available at that moment.
Yes.
So because it's only the sort of retrospective, again, the quote unquote wrong decision if it goes not the way you expected, and it's right if it goes the way you hoped or better. So it's only through after the fact that we can say whether it was potentially, again, whether it's right or wrong depending on the outcome. But then that was one of the biggest things, I suppose, for me over the last 6 to 12 months, is the whole thing of letting go of what the outcome will be. As much as we might have the aspirations, the goals, whatever they are, none of it's guaranteed. You have to still go with the action. So I'm interested. So you went into then the pharmaceutical world. That transition from, say, leaving again private corporate, still an employee, to go doing your own thing. Moving into that space of being your, self-employed or your own business. Tell me about that sort of thought process or transition.
It was the most terrifying time of my life. I was earning, I'm going to say, shed loads of money in a very, very successful role.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was terrifying. I um, I was going to be earning like a tiny, tiny amount compared with what I was able to bring in from that role. But here's the thing, and it references what you were saying just before. For me, the quiet voice reminds me of what's important to me, my values, if you want to use that word.
Mm,
So therefore, although I was concerned, how am I going to be able to pay the mortgage? You know, yeah, how am I going to be able to pay the mortgage? How am I going to be able to put food on the table? Will we have to sell this house so that I have enough money? Um, that they were scary and terrifying, and I sat crying as I contemplated them, but they're not what drove the decision. The
mm,
decision was uh, is this a good fit for me anymore? And
mm,
again, with my slightly funny stroke morbid preoccupation with death was, um, if I stay here, will it be worth being alive for, or might it just kill
Mm.
me? And I knew it would kill me as a human, if you know what I mean. I might have been
Mm.
able to go through the motions, but the that that quiet voice that said, "Is this a fit for me anymore? Can I do this? Can I be okay that I am squashing or ignoring what really matters to me? Time with my daughter, time with family, and so much more." That was what made it doable to write
Mm.
the letter. And the universe at these times often, she's laughing away because I think she really tests us at these times. Um, so I had no idea how it was going to turn out. And in some ways, it sounds such a almost romantic story. We had very little money. It was tough. We weren't walking along a beach into the sunset. That's not how life goes. And it was the best decision for me
Mm.
personally, for our family, for the relationships that really matter to me. Um, yeah, and for just the fact that I've spent the last 20 plus years noticing I'm alive.
Mm.
That's
But
pretty.
Hi, James here. If you've been watching and thinking, I would like to make a change but not sure where to start, that's where I can help. My 12-week coaching program will enable you to reconnect with what matters most and move forward with clarity and confidence. If that sounds like you, head over to jamesdeancoach.com. Now let's get back to the episode.
that is,
Important.
yeah, and it's like the. I'm going to just echo what you said there because I think it's so important because there's so many people that um, and I will include myself in this over from previous years, find themselves in careers for good or bad or whatever reason. And it might be a career that they really wanted to go into initially. And it's either, and they've either realized it's not for them, lost the love of it, whatever the reason, they just know they're not in the place, as you said, it's no longer a fit for me. And you asked the really almost direct and hard question of yourself there was like, effectively, is this worth me being alive for to stay here? Now that's because that's a real, like, you can't hide from that question, can you? Because that's like real. As you say in that question again of like the fact that you are alive, it's such a short space of time of what you're here for. So when you ask such a direct question of yourself, like there's no hiding that. So I think it's a really powerful, as you say, people say might say it's morbid, but it's like it's no, this is time to what's the pin the flag on the mast, whatever it is. It's like come on now, like get real with yourself because you could just keep going and you could just keep the motions and the career could be fine, but it's fine enough type thing.
Mm.
And so it's yeah, very very powerful.
And the other piece, you see, we have this idea, we're very, we have a lot of polarity in us that, it can be one or the other. It has to be this
Mm,
wonderful career or this, a life that's aligned. It, the reality is that, the two, so we have to put food on the table. We have to, so when I left that role, you know I went back doing some nursing for night duty to put food on the table.
yeah,
So
yeah,
this again, I'm saying this is not this romantic thing, but actually how I describe it is we were so much poorer financially and richer in every other way. Every
mm,
other way. So sometimes, the we think it's this or that, but invariably there's 20 other uh, iterations in between
yeah,
the two polarities that we may not be able to consider while we're in those, moments of decision.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, no, and yeah, it's a really important point. As you say, it's the the stuff that you still have to do. There's still the logistics of life. There's still the things that, that we need. So it's still, how do you manage that, but doing it in a way that you said that's kind of, but has that meaning to what you're trying to do, even if it's just a smaller bit. And it's a really powerful thing to say. You say poorer financially, but richer in every way. That's a really sort of, because then that would, to me, then it's like, it makes it that it's worth it. That's the point, isn't it? That's the words that I'm trying to get to. It's like, it was worth the tough decisions, the worry, all those things made it absolutely worth it, making that decision.
Without a doubt, like there was no hesitation. It was the best decision I've made in life. And of course, remember, that doesn't mean that's the best decision for someone else. It comes down to being clear, I suppose, what matters to us. And I keep putting my hand on my heart here when I say that, because for someone else, the career that I had is the best thing. So, and this is the piece. It's about, this is a journey we make on our own, really, as humans. That it is. There's often not much time to pause and reflect and check in and see, okay, who am I? Who am I becoming? I say family, for example, it's a big one. Family is important. Well, how does it show up? So we talked about decision. Decision is for me what I do after I've had some words in my head. So when we say that family is important, how is that showing up in our lives? If time in nature is important, do we manage to get an hour once every other weekend in nature? Is that it? And so it's about knowing what's important and then beginning to move towards a way of living that will allow more of that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. You mentioned there, when you were talking about your career, the sort of the work that you do now and the people that you work with and how you do it. I'm always interested, considering it's been sort of, as you say, over 20 plus years of you working for yourself. How has that changed for yourself in a sense of the work you do over the decades, in sense of from when you started to where you are now?
Well, at the very outset, I suppose I focused a lot on helping people with physical conditions, whether that was migraine or IBS or hormonal issues. My own journey meant that I became more informed about the hormonal journey that women in particular go through. And so a lot of my clients, particularly in the first 10 years, I would have worked with around hormonal health. As I began to have more tools, I suppose that has changed. I still have a huge amount of work in that hormonal health area. And when I say hormonal health, I mean the last few years, perimenopause and menopause have been very on trend. I'm going to say the reality is that's been happening for as long as we've been around. But I suppose I've spent quite a bit of time in the last 5 years, perhaps, helping inform people in workplaces how useful it is to consider the whole body. I have a session that I deliver, which is, it takes more than a patch to thrive. And what I mean by that is that your HRT can be so valuable in so many ways. And it takes more than that to feel like yourself again, if that makes sense. It's about looking after the physical body that you have. And for me, particularly around perimenopause and menopause, midlife is a natural time that humans, start to question. We joke about a little, midlife crisis, but actually what it is really is that, little voice that says, what about me? Is this it?
Yeah.
Surely there must be more. Why am I still picking up after everyone? All of those, thoughts we have in some ways are a little calling from inside that says, hello, it's worth checking in. You're somewhere midway on the journey. Are there things that you want to start doing? Are there things you want to stop doing? Are there dreams you once put away because you had family to care for? Is it time to consider them again and take them back up again? And so my work includes so much more than just the physical body. It's also about that um, ownership of self that says, actually, um, I'm driving the bus of my own life, and it's up to me to make sure that I'm putting the right fuel in, that I'm resting it enough, that I'm taking the movement that I need. Because when we do that, we feel so much better as humans when we're in the driver's seat for our own life.
Yeah, 100%. It's that when talking to anyone like yourself in this space, there isn't a sort of just, oh no, just do this one thing and then everything will be fine. As you say, it is about the whole person, the whole thing. And there is the element of what you can fix potentially medically, pharmaceutically, but there's also the physicality, there's the spiritual, there's the mental, there's the emotional, and it's because if you think or believe that the whole thing of just the panacea, the one thing, that's going to be it. Because you said it's interesting the way you said it there, the sort of term, it's not to say wrong word, it says a terminology, but obviously menopause and perimenopause very much more in the general discourse of discussion over the last number of years, which is, I'm sure, great. But as you say, it's not to be ignored for all the years before. But in the same sense, you don't want to think, oh, this is the one thing that's going to help everyone. It's, you can't look for just one thing. It's so layered, so many different things. So I like the fact that that your approach isn't just going, oh, then this will be the thing to do. This will fix it all. There's so much more to what potentially is going on in any one person.
Well, and that's true biologically. So if we
Yeah,
just stay out of, anything spiritual or emotional at all,
sure.
biologically,
Yeah.
the human body is amazing. It is incredible. We have no idea what we don't know yet. Like,
Mm,
really, we're learning so much more, and medicine and the research that's happening is giving us so much more insight into how complex this whole system is.
mm,
So anything to be as you use such a blunt instrument as saying, okay, whether it's a patch or a tablet or this
mm,
will fix me.
yeah.
It I recommend, so every year, and especially then every decade, that clients just take 20 minutes to say, okay, if I were to consider myself a year from now or 5 years from now or 10 years from now, what 5 words would I like to be able to use to describe my physical body? So to just
Mm,
stay physical. So I remember doing this when I was 50, and I remember thinking, well, fit and flexible. And then I realized, actually, I don't think I'm as strong as I'd like to be, so strong. Um, and so on. And when we identify something as simple as that, just 5 words, you go, well, where am I at now with these 5 things? Am I fit? Am I strong? Am I flexible? Am I healthy? Am I, whatever the questions are?
mm,
And what do I need to be doing today that will move me towards that? So when we keep it even as simple as that pure body piece, that
mm,
just makes it easier to say, oh, okay, so if that's the case, what do I need to do? Youth is fabulous. Like, it really is. It's great for the simple reason we can ignore the physical body, but you know the reality is that when we're lucky enough, like me, I turned 60 this year, when we're lucky enough to be this many years on the planet, um, I want to make sure that I'm looking after this body pretty well. And that doesn't mean that, I can't have fun and that I can't do lovely things and I can't eat lovely things. But actually, I want to. There's a lovely phrase you probably know from Jim Rohn, and I heard it in the 80s. He said, "Take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live." It really landed well with me. And so, yeah, the same can be asked then of your mental health, of your
Mm.
emotional or spiritual health. What 5 words? So for me, it was, curiosity, wonder, that have some lightness. So they're the sorts of words that I'm, moving out into my future towards. It might be completely different for someone else. That's their gig. But
Yeah.
otherwise we're just doing this, and then we end up
Mm.
old someday, or thinking, frig it, I really should have.
Yes. But I love that sort of that idea and that sort of almost my word of sort of exercise, in a sense of it's almost like not complete, but a very sort of one lane over from goal setting, if you know what I mean, in the sense of when we talk about, and I'm not going to knock it entirely because I think there's still some value in goal setting, but it's like, be as, get the specifics and all this and write it down and all, I get that. But I love the sort of more creative perspective you gave, in a sense of 5 words, 5 descriptive words of what you want to be, and picking that particular area. So you say you're like, of your body, how would you want your body to be in those 5 years time, 10 years time, whatever, and picking 5 distinct words, because it's real, because it gets you thinking. Like it's I'm immediately going, oh, that's a great. And then if you take the 5 from a mental side of it, emotional side of it, whatever it is, but just 5 words versus, because sometimes I go back and forth with the ideas of goal setting, because it's then the goals is one thing, it's the actionable pieces below it, because otherwise it's just something on a piece of paper or something in your head. But 5 descriptive words that you want to be, and then you go, well, actually, what are the things I need to do those 5 things, or be those, not even do, be those 5 things. I think it's a really interesting and sort of different way of thinking of that, because to me, it kind of comes across as a bit more calm is the word I'd use in that. It's not as sort of, as you said, you were doing it earlier, when you're doing the sort of like, yeah, exactly, that sort of, I've got to go get this type thing. There's got to be this energy, and there's got to be this impact, versus, no, it's just 5 things I want to be. And then it's doing it behind. This is the question I coming to my mind there, because you did say the word strong. And over the last number of years in relations, particularly into women, and women, I think over the age of really 45, 50 plus, literally physical strength. Is that something that, in relation to yourself, in relation to physical exercise, that you yourself, and then when you're working with women as well, does that come part of it?
Very much so. The reality again is bringing it back to the physical body that we have. Really, once we are past 35, maybe 40, there's a certain amount of attrition, muscle loss and muscle degradation, if you wanted to call it, that's happening. The end. It's happening. It's part of the gig for being alive still. And so I like to play with opposites sometimes. So if I don't do things, activities that help make me strong, I'll be a frail old lady. And I don't want to be a frail old lady. And that is just like, you might use a phrase, a frail old man either, because the reality is the aging process will naturally, unless we are doing stuff to support our body to stay strong, that can happen. And so for me, I'm a big fan of reformer Pilates. It's something I do twice a week. It has transformed my physical strength. Um, but it's what you're going to do and what you like doing is what
Mm,
is the key here.
yeah.
I like it. I like being on the reformer in my own space, competing with me as such, as opposed
Mm,
to
mm,
anyone else. And it really helps us. It helps us very practically. Um, yeah, there's a great feeling to be, on my 60th birthday, to know I'm actually stronger, fitter, more flexible than I was when I was in my 40s.
mm,
And it takes work,
yeah.
and it's lovely because I feel the benefit in my body.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Absolutely.
really important for us.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's like you were reminding me there of when you're saying that, in the sense of there's so many benefits to being physically active, in the sense of, from beyond just the physical body, there's the mental side of it, the emotional side of it. It's so much, a huge advocate for doing any of it. But then there's the practical side of it as well as we age. And I don't know if you follow or anything online, Sally Gunnell, the former British
Yeah.
hurdler. So obviously she won her medals at Olympics. It was 92 in Barcelona. So I used to follow her various social media. So she obviously does talks and things like that as well. But when she's like, and she's still in the gym. But what I love about her examples now is like, she'll go, oh, I used to go to the gym to train to do this, and show a clip of her winning a race. What I do, the reason I do it now is because of this. So she could be like, say, lifting some dumbbells in a gym, just standing up and lifting up, and then she'll say she's lifting up her shopping. Or I'm doing some. She'd show herself doing some squats, and then she's getting out of a chair. It's the practicality of, as you're going to get older, those simple tasks that we may take for granted at the moment could be lost. So there's an element of this physicality of, yes, it's wonderful, yes, it's great, and it feels great, but it's putting stuff in the bank for as you get older, so those tasks that you want to be able to do, as you say, that you're not that frail old lady or that frail old man. There's this sort of, there's a long-term benefit as well of doing this stuff now.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that's why I like the simplicity, I suppose, of the words, and
Mm.
uh, because I roll them out into the future, so they're
Yes.
somewhere ahead. But when we do that with what we're doing every day, that is exactly like you mentioned. It is like putting a deposit into our future.
Yeah.
I saw a lovely image. I don't have grandchildren, but I saw a lovely image, and it was something similar. It was somebody picking up weights in a gym, and then the picture beside it was picking up a grandchild and being able to swing the child around.
Yeah.
And yeah, it
It's
helps. What we do now today
yeah.
helps us towards that.
Yeah. 100%. I'm interested in the sense of the next question I have is, what is it the sort of big focus of your work that you're doing at the moment? Is there a sort of a big thing, that project or thing that you're trying to focus on at the moment?
Yes, uh, I delivered a TEDx talk earlier this year about
Amazing.
how menopause will change your life. And there's a piece in that about, I suppose, a new narrative, a different narrative for being a woman in her 40s or 50s. And historically, we've probably been familiar with the more traditional three stages of womanhood: maiden, mother, and crone. However, in the TEDx talk, I shared about what I consider a more appropriate description of the stages of womanhood, which was maiden, creative, enchantress, warrior, and sage or crone. So, enchantress warrior is that time when we've moved past our fertile time, when there's a little bit of space. You know, the role of mothering can often be a great service provider, and often sage or crone is considered the same. You know, she's a wise one. She knows she can support those coming behind her. But there's a period of time in that 40s and 50s when perhaps demands are a little less. Our children aren't so young, or maybe they've already left the nest. And there's a time when we can really come into ourselves. And I use those words enchantress and warrior for the simple reason they are, and I'm doing this because they're two sides of the same coin in some way. That they're that resource we have inside of us. So some of us, and I would be one of these women, I'm quite good. I can get things done. I'm well. I have lots of the warrior stuff. I can make stuff happen in the world. However, what I need to pay attention to is that enchantress, that lighter, fun energy aspect of me that says, Ara, go on, it'll be great. We'll have some fun, giggles, lightness, perhaps doing things just for the fun of it. That doesn't come so naturally to me. And so it's to be able to, at this time of life, tap into that energy. But for other women, they may need to tap into warrior, to have their voice heard, to have clearer, stronger boundaries, to be able to turn up for themselves and say, actually, this is what I need. And for me, perimenopause and menopause is such a great time when it is naturally a call to go inwards, to check, who am I? What have I been doing? What am I really good at? What do I no longer want to do? What's an old story? And what am I bringing into the second half of life? So my work is playing a lot with that aspect of perimenopause and menopause. I have a one-day event coming up in October that is about that, about taking a day to reconsider the second half of life and how you might tap into these resources, while at the same time also having very practical information about, better sleep and better energy and all of those things. But I love that idea that we can think more fully about health at perimenopause and menopause, and that's the toy I'm playing with at the moment.
All right. No, I love it. I love it because, as I said, it's there's so much more in the last number of years, I think, on about it, and I think particularly maybe just because I follow in that Davina McCall as a huge sort of talking about it and an advocate of it. But I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm trying to think, is the sort of the narrative, I'm not sure I like that word all the time, but the narrative around women going through perimenopause and menopause, that it's, from what you described, that lovely description of a chanted warrior, and I'm doing that same thing with my hands as well, in the sense of that person or that woman, that the narrative is shifting from that rather, 80s, 90s, archaic, in my opinion, sort of the woman at menopause is kind of like, wants to tell everyone to just sort off and fingers up to the world, and kind of like this sort of this angriness coming out because it's like the questioning of life. And it was, such a stereotype, such a trope of that was passed out through TV shows or comedy and stuff. And it's like, well, actually, it's not necessarily, we don't have to think, oh, my life was wasted or I hated it. It's just, it's a moment to kind of go, you know what, is there something different? It doesn't have to be that before was terrible. It might have been, but we don't have to keep play into that stereotype. Does that make sense?
It does. One of the things I shared in the TEDx talk was my own less than lovely ways of coping with my own early menopause. I had a
Mm.
menopause at age 40, and I described them in two particular modes that I lived in until I knew that there was a different way. And the first one I called Martyr Me. And that was, feeling very sorry for myself and, sure, how could I sit down or go for a walk because sure, who'd clean the table? And my famous phrase that I heard myself saying here, they'll all be sorry when I'm gone, sort of thing. And so this martyr piece that we can, I poke fun at in myself, but actually lots of women know. And 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 then I'm going to go to the other piece of it, which I called Mean Girl Me, where I was that angry, resentful, peed off person. It was like, but for me, what I realized, of course, is that these states are a calling or uh,
Mm.
a little flag that says it's time. It's time to pause. It's time to check in. It's time to get into the driver's seat. It's time to cut away what no longer serves us. So while I poked fun at my own less than lovely ways of managing, they were actually a signal, a sign that
Yeah.
it was time to update my story for the second half of life. Um, and and although we don't do it in comedies and in quite the same way, uh, sometimes the narrative of the media or
Mm.
the marketeers is that well, everything is because of the estrogen. If you have X and Y
Yeah.
and this, and so sure, it's no wonder you're that way. It's probably because of this, and so we give the power to that only. And while
Yes.
our physical symptoms can be devastatingly tough for some women. There's no doubt about it. And I include myself at the time, particularly that long ago. It was a really tough, lonely time. Um, when we take that little bit of time to step back, it empowers us to be able to get the treatments we need, to get the
Mm.
supports we need, so that we can have the investigations that might be useful or prudent. And it's nicer to be us. Certainly
Yeah.
it was nicer to
Yeah.
be me anyway.
Yeah. But it goes back again to that point you said earlier, in a sense of, and I'm not in any way trying to be flippant with what women go through or anything like that. But it's that point you said earlier about, it's more than just a patch or more than just this. And as much, it's not to say that managing or helping with the physicality that is happening at that moment isn't important. But again, it's that which you mentioned earlier, in sense of going back into the health service and in pharmaceuticals, that siloed approach. Oh, you're like this, so we'll just give you X. Or you're getting this symptom, we'll give you Y. See you, best of luck, take care now. Versus you say, like, but all of these things, it's not to say that they're not happening, but there's a more holistic approach to everything that can be taken into account. So it's not ignoring it, but it's not saying that's not the only thing either. Do you know what I mean? And
Yes.
that's where I think, and as soon as you said that, you smiled. Like, it's like there's so much more to it. And I think the point that, if I'm right in here, what you're saying, there's like, it's also acknowledging there's so much more potentially amazing stuff to come if you work and go through it and figure out what is the best things. There's amazing things that can happen and keep going along.
Yeah. And that's why I'm very deliberate with the wording I use, which is
Yeah.
to update your preferences or your story for the second half of life.
Yeah.
How do you want to be in the world? Who do you want to be in the world?
Mm.
And the symptoms of menopause can leave people absolutely, wiped and unable to function or think well. And when we get treatments and supports, it makes the biology easier. And the phrase, feeling like myself again, for some women, HRT, that's enough. That they will then be able to tap back into feeling like themselves. But for so many women, and I would work with a lot of women who are already on HRT, they're saying, it's helped with the sleep, it's helped with the flushes, it's helped with energy. But actually, yeah, I just don't know. I say that's it. That's the piece where you go, well, let's begin to consider how you want to be. Like, what are the things that really will make you smile and have lightness? That enchantress piece.
It's because in some way, like it's that sort of that question, them saying, "Oh, that's I don't know." That sort of almost element of malaise or doubt is almost, it's been able to try and help someone kind of flip that phrase and go, well, isn't that exciting? It's how do you tap into sort of like, how do we change that? If you don't know, there's opportunity there, there's possibility there. It's that you're stuck in the I don't know phase. We need to kind of spin that away and kind of go, well, what could there be then? And that's with any people, but especially, you say, going through such a transition in their moment in life, physically, everything that goes on. So it's like when you get to a point where you can get to that person and go, that woman, and go, okay, but you're, and I'd say this is the question I like to ask: when you do work with those women and you do get to that moment, and they say, and then you kind of see something change in them, you see the shift. What's that like for you as the person at the front, or the enabling that?
Well, for me, it's, I'm smiling because there's a lightness that comes in humans, men and women, when they tap into who they are. That, there's our physical body, but there's a you inside of you. There's a me inside of me that has been with me from when I was a teeny tiny girl all the way up, the one looking out there at the world. And when we can tap back into that, it makes my work certainly very fulfilling. But also, it's just lovely to see humans come alive. There's a lot of us are buried under responsibilities and tasks and busyness and pressure and overwhelm, and that's hard for human. It's hard. We're not meant to move that fast all the time, to be always with that sense of urgency. It's not good for our biology, but it's also not good for our spirit or our soul. Or so it is lovely to have a person, be they man or a woman, just taking a moment and going, actually, yeah, well, maybe I could actually do that.
Absolutely. No, fantastic. There's a few questions I always like to ask every guest, Ashleigh, and one of them, you shared one earlier from Jim Rohn, which I love that one as well. But are there any other quotes or phrases that are important to you?
Yes, there's a lovely one. The tragedy of life is not that it ends so soon, but that we wait too long to begin it. And again, it's just one of those little reminders that, yeah, life is important and needs to be noticed. And there's another one then by Annie Dillard. How we spend our days is, after all, how we spend our lives. And yeah, so they resonate a lot with me. I love words. I love the spoken word. It's It's beautiful, and it can evoke so much for us as humans.
Absolutely.
Mm.
100%. And they very much link back to your very first answer to the question again, as well as that, the sort of like that acknowledgement and appreciation and sort of that I'm alive and I'm noticing that I'm alive, and doing it and being in that body moment, whoever you are, consciousness. So I know, love the way they link back, and yeah, beautiful quotes. Other question that I always ask everyone: who do you think have been the biggest influences in your life?
So, in a strange way, I'm going to say the oppressive nature of life growing up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Not any one person, but just the culture I was steeped in here in Ireland, in a counterintuitive way, was so excruciating for me as a young person, as a teenager. I struggled with it so much that in many ways it was that um, that yeah, culture that I was immersed in that caused the angst or the I have to move out of this. So in some ways, that has been a big influence. That, and I use the word oppression, but that binding or tight or suffocative way of having only one set of rules as opposed to having curiosity. And I'm going to add one more thing. I remember doing a pre-nursing course in Carlow Regional College for a few months after I did my Leaving Cert, and this was way back then when there was a PowerPoint was like acetates on the old fashioned thing, and we had a topic called psychology, which I didn't know anything about. I was just 17 and I hadn't really encountered much of it before, and the teacher at the time, he put up Maslow's hierarchy of needs on the acetate, and fireworks went off in my brain because suddenly I understood almost every question that I had. Up until then, I didn't understand them, but it made such sense. And I still remember the moment I saw it and went, so that's what's happening. And of course, I didn't know, with my mind, I didn't know much at the time, but it felt completely right and helped me then ask questions of myself so that it influenced what I did and who I was being in the world.
Love it. Love it. It's been absolutely wonderful to chat to you, Ashleigh. I've really enjoyed it and learned so much again from talking to you. I do have one more question for you, though, which is, what's important for your future?
I'm 60. I was 60 last month. So for my future, my words are curiosity, creativity, lightness, fun, enchantress, physically, strength, fitness, flexibility. Oh yeah, flexibility, that's important, body and mind. And just appreciation of this gift that I'm alive. And who knows what I'll actually be doing, but they're the filters that I'll be putting it through. Yeah, because it's good to be alive.
100%. Love it. I am absolutely going to be using that 5-word technique, because I think it's so simple and so beautiful and so accessible. I think is the other word. That's the word that I was trying to think of earlier. It's just yeah, such, we can overcomplicate things sometimes, can't we?
Oh yes.
We can, yeah, we're so good at it, thinking, oh no, I always think that this tangent again, one of the things I think, with people, we think personally, well, I'm so complicated. It must take something beyond complicated to quote unquote fix me.
Yes.
Like, because, you know, we get so caught up in ourselves and stuff. And it's like, you know, it's not usually as complicated as we think. So something simple, something accessible. So I love that, that 5-word description of how you want to be. I think it's really, really, really good. As I say, Ashleigh, it's been absolutely wonderful to chat to you, and I've really enjoyed the conversation. Absolutely. And I want to make sure people know how to follow and connect with what you're doing. There will be links in the show notes, but if you would like to give a shout out now of where people can follow you online.
So I live on LinkedIn quite a bit, so you can catch me there. I also intermittently go onto my Instagram account, not half enough apparently. They can also check out my work at ashleightobin.com and find out about my play shop, I'm calling it, my one-day event in October, by sending me a message on either LinkedIn or Instagram.
Love it. Absolutely. So all those links will be in the notes. So make sure you follow Ashleigh, and make sure you get that to workshop. Sounds amazing. But yeah, check her out and follow her. Ashleigh, once again, thank you so much for chatting to me.
Thank you so much too.
Thanks for listening to What's Important to You. If you enjoyed this episode, follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if it resonated, share it with someone who might need it too. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment or ask a question, and let's keep the conversation going. I'm James Dean, and I'll be back soon with another real conversation to help you reconnect with what truly matters. Until then, take care and stay curious.